Let's just jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here because today we are unpacking a truly fascinating, honestly radical vision for theological education put forward by author Ryan McLean. Look, whether you're deeply familiar with church structures or you're just kind of interested in how massive ancient institutions organize their people and their goals, McLean's papers, Enacted Formation and Universal Priestly Formation propose a massive paradigm shift. He's asking us to fundamentally rethink exactly how deep spiritual training is distributed.
So that brings us to the core, completely provocative question driving this entire explainer today. Should everyone train like priests? I mean, normally we think of seminary as this highly exclusive closed-door pipeline, right? You go in a regular person and you come out an ordained minister assigned to run a parish. But McLean takes that and flips it entirely on its head. He's basically asking, if becoming more like Christ is the absolute ultimate good, why on earth would any institution optimize to keep that formation scarce?
Now, to help break down this incredibly dense academic theology, McLean does something really clever. He includes a brilliant framing device in his papers called Angela's Explainer. Angela is actually his daughter, and these sections are essentially real-world translations of high-level theological concepts into everyday, accessible, and often pretty hilarious terms. We'll definitely be leaning on Angela's wisdom today to help us cut through the jargon and see the core logic of these arguments clearly.
Okay, here's our agenda. First, learning faith by living it. Second, rethinking the seminary pipeline. Third, organizing for highest goals. Fourth, sacraments, not career credentials. And finally, a world of priest-plumbers.
Starting with Section 1, Learning Faith by Living It. McLean's first big argument is that Christian faith isn't just a textbook you read. It's an action. Think about it. Christ didn't just hand his disciples a syllabus. He got down and washed their feet. The disciple learns the reality of the faith through shared, lived experience. McLean maps this out as enacted formation. Using Ignatian spirituality, he shows that the spiritual exercises aren't just abstract ideas to ponder. They are things a person actually does. We're talking prayer, discernment, obedience, and service. Formation literally has to precede assignment. Or, as Angela's explainer perfectly puts it, Jesus didn't send us a textbook. He came as a person and showed us how to love. We learn by watching and doing, not just memorizing stuff.
To make this whole argument work, McLean uses a specific analytical rulebook he calls constraint-based theological reconstruction. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but don't let the big words intimidate you. It basically just means looking at the rules of an institution and asking, hey, are we doing this because it is an absolute, unchangeable truth from God, or are we just doing it because it's a historical habit we kind of inherited? By peeling back those habits, McLean tests why deep formation is currently rationed out to so few people.
To really ground this idea, McLean draws on philosopher Suzanne K. Langer, who said, "Art is the creation of forms symbolic of human feeling." Just as art gives physical form to inward feelings, McLean is suggesting that deep human experiences like spiritual faith absolutely must be lived and enacted in physical forms and disciplines. It cannot just be discussed in the abstract, It requires real structural forms of formation.
Moving to Section 2, Rethinking the Seminary Pipeline. So if formation is this beautiful, lived experience, why in the world is the seminary system primarily viewed as an exclusive job pipeline just to solve parish staffing shortages? We currently operate on what McLean calls a scarcity model. Angela jokingly calls this the VIP club, where we act like there's a holiness machine and only 3 people are allowed to even touch it. McLean contrasts this with an expansion model. Jesus said the harvest is abundant, right? So the movement of the gospel is expansion, not restriction. The goal should be maximizing this deep formation for as many people as possible, not hoarding it away.
To explain the difference between unchangeable truths and changeable bottlenecks, Angela's explainer gives us the totally hilarious blue socks rule. Just imagine a school requires blue socks on Tuesdays strictly because someone spilled applesauce on the principal way back in 1987. 40 years later, literally no one remembers why, but they fiercely defend the rule. McLean is asking the church, are your barriers to seminary entry protecting divine truth, or are they just a 1987 applesauce spill? Because if it's protecting truth, absolutely keep it. But if it's just a historical traffic cone, move it.
Section 3, Organizing for Highest Goals.
Healthy institutions should always prioritize their ultimate goals, rather than building structures around their present limitations or failure rates. McLean uses a spot-on analogy here, the Boy Scouts of America and the rank of Eagle Scout. Not every scout becomes an Eagle Scout, we all know that. But the institution doesn't say, well, since most won't finish, let's just not let anyone try. No way. The goal of Eagle Scout organizes the entire institution because the actual process of aiming for the highest standard forms discipline and character. McLean argues the church should aim everyone toward the highest standard of priestly formation, even if everyone doesn't reach ordination.
And this ties back so beautifully to Suzanne Langer's philosophy. She notes that the movements of inward life really can't be adequately expressed by just talking about them. They have to be articulated by non-discursive forms. Translated into plain English, a concentrated seminary formation provides the rigorous structure required to actually shape the invisible inward movements of our spiritual life. It's an intrinsic good all on its own, whether you graduate to a parish assignment or not.
Let's look at Section 4, Sacraments, Not Career Credentials.
We have to unpack a really critical distinction here between a lifelong sacramental configuration and simply getting hired for a job. Holy Orders is a sacrament. It permanently marks and configures a person. A job assignment, like being a parish administrator, is completely temporary and changeable. As Angela points out, if someone becomes a doctor, they don't suddenly stop being a doctor just because they're buying cereal in aisle 5. Being an ordained minister shouldn't be reduced to just holding a full-time administrative role at a church building.
When mapping out this idea of universal priestly formation, McLean points out that early church figures like Ignatius of Antioch were fierce defenders of order, unity, and the role of the bishop. But, and this is a huge but, Ignatius never claimed that deep formation should be scarce. Order is necessary so everyone doesn't crash into each other like shopping carts, as Angela says, but order does not equal exclusivity. The goal is a whole people formed, not just a tiny guarded class.
And finally, Section 5, A World of Priest Plumbers. This is where we bring high-level theology straight out of the sanctuary and drop it right into the messiness of ordinary life. An ordained person can work any of these ordinary jobs. Let's not forget the Apostle Paul was literally a tent maker. His manual labor didn't negate his mission, it funded it. McLean envisions a society where a plumber fixing your sink has been deeply formed in prayer, sacrifice, and theology. Fixing a sink doesn't erase the sacrament, it actually diffuses holy formation directly into the world, spreading it into our homes, garages, schools, and hospitals. It's an amazing concept.
And this brings us right back to Suzanne Langer one last time. She writes that the behavior of a living organism preserves a dynamic pattern that maintains the integrity of the individual life. When an ordained person lives out their deep spiritual formation while simultaneously working as a mechanic or a teacher, they are preserving a beautiful, unified integrity. The sacred and the ordinary aren't separated into tiny, isolated boxes anymore. They are dynamically integrated into one incredible whole life.
So that leaves us with one really big, memorable final thought to chew on today. Are we ready to remove our own spiritual bottlenecks and literally stop rationing the holy snacks? McLean's work challenges all of us to stop viewing deep learning and spiritual formation as some kind of exclusive VIP club, because if it's genuinely good, it should be expanded. How can we embrace this expansive diffusion of knowledge, discipline, and formation in our own lives and communities starting today? I really hope this explainer gave you a ton to think about. Keep learning, keep focusing, and I will see you next time.